So in our last lesson, we were able to add enemies to the screen, and you can see here on the left side some of the problems that we had where the enemies are showing up at the bottom and they're never going away. They're also kind of magically appearing at the top. So in order to fix that, we can actually ensure their bounds, but we can change the ensure bounds function. So JavaScript allows you to call functions with different numbers of arguments, but it doesn't actually do much with the arguments if they're left out. So what we can do is in our ensure bounds, we can add another parameter called ignore y. So now this will just be false. This will be empty or undefined for any time we've already called this. But if we want to set this parameter to true now, we could just change this function a little bit so that here we can say if not ignore y and sprite.y is greater than 20, and if not ignore y. So now when we set our bounds or ensure our bounds for our enemies, we can just pass. So here in ensure bounds for hero, we're not passing in anything, so that value is going to default to false. And for our enemies, when we ensure our bounds, we can pass in true. So that's going to fix some of our problems. You'll notice now that the enemies come nice in and they move down, but now they're going to move right out of the bottom, which is also not good because they're going to scroll down forever and they're never going to stop. So we need to actually put in some checks to make sure that the enemies don't move out of the entire screen. We also want to put in some checks to make sure that the enemies are removed when there's a collision. So in order to do this, we need to create a new function, and we're going to call this function intersects. So there are a lot of functions that you can find on the internet for intersections. We're going to do a simple one. We're going to say if a.x is less than b.x plus b.w. Basically what we're saying is if, let's say that our red square is a and our blue squares are b, we're going to say if that left edge of a is less than, or is to the left of the right edge of the b, and a.x plus a.w is greater than b.x. So if we're saying the right edge is beyond the left, or is to the right edge of left, or the left edge of b, and a.y is less than b.y plus b.h, and a.y plus a.h is greater than b.y. So that will tell us if two objects intersect. And just to test this, we can actually add a new function to our loop, and we'll say before we add our enemies, we'll check for collisions. We'll define that here. Function check collisions. So we'll check to see if any of our enemies intersect with first our laser. For bar I equals 0, I is less than enemies dot length I plus plus. If intersects laser enemies I. Now we want to actually handle this. So when our laser actually hits one of our enemies, we want to remove that enemy from the array. So the thing that we can do here is we can say enemies, we want to remove this from the array, so enemies.splice, starting from I, one value. What that says is we want to remove at the position I, one value. And once we've done that, we want to actually remove that or we want to reduce the array by 1 so it continues processing properly. Otherwise, it's going to skip over one of our enemies. So now you can see I've introduced some kind of JavaScript error. We have on line 78. It's probably just a simple typo. Yeah, you can see that we have on 78. We have defined this as a variable instead of a function. Yeah, that's not good. So now we should be able to get this to work, assuming there are no other errors, which there are. On line 126 here, we forgot one of our parentheses. There we go. Now we're looking much better. Now if we find an enemy to shoot, notice that it just stops dead in its tracks when the laser passes through it. But that's not exactly what we want, because we want to actually remove that enemy from the document as well. So we want to go beyond just taking them out of the enemy's array. We want to remove them from the screen as well. So we'll create an element here. We'll just retrieve that element, and we'll use enemies I.element here. And then we'll set element.style.visibility hidden, then we'll use element dot parent node dot remove child element. And all that does is it just removes it from the page so that we're cleaning up our resources more effectively. So now if I refresh, you'll notice if I shoot an enemy, and we haven't made any mistakes, assuming I find one and that I can hit it, notice the laser just keeps going, which is probably not fair either. So let's set the laser equal to the laser's y coordinate to negative laser.h, which will just put it right off the screen. So now when we shoot an enemy, we should see the laser disappear, which is probably more fair. Now if we don't intersect with the laser, we want to actually also check if enemies I dot y plus enemies I dot h is greater than 500, greater than or equal to 500. Because if it is, we want to do a lot of these same things. We want to take these first couple of lines and remove that enemy from the array. So this should prevent the enemies from falling off the bottom and scrolling our page well beyond where we want. You can see here now the enemies, when they hit the bottom, they're just dropping off, which is kind of the intended, what we intended. So we also want to add in another else here because we want to check to see if we hit the hero. Else if enemies I, or else if intersects hero enemies I. We also want to make sure that we're actually hitting the hero. So let's go ahead and we'll say var element is equal to document.getElement by ID hero.element element.style.visibility equal hidden. So that should keep our hero off the screen now, or take the hero off the screen if we run into an enemy. You can see that just took the hero right off the screen. So that handles some basic interaction with enemies. It allows us to handle collisions and gets us pretty close to a complete game. So in the next lesson we'll add scoring and we'll add the ability to show the end of the game. But this gets us pretty far beyond where we would, or pretty far where we would like to be with a working functional game. Thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for the next lesson.